Hey guys, tonight we begin with ... You standing in front of a pair of giant blood-red palace doors. The kind you've only ever seen in Chinese dramas, where everyone whispers and bows. Except here, there are no cameras, no soft lighting, no fake extras in silk robes. This is real. You've been dragged straight into the Forbidden City. And the smell alone tells you this isn't Netflix, this is history. It smells like incense, sweat, and secrets. Now here's the thing no one tells you. Concubines weren't just pretty ornaments, sitting around waiting for the emperor to pick them like some fruit basket at midnight. No, their days were packed, complicated, and honestly, kind of insane. From the moment you are admitted as a concubine, your entire existence changes. And tonight, you're not watching, you're living it. The palace gates slam behind you. And suddenly you realize you're not walking into a dream of gold dragons and floating silk. You're walking into the most cutthroat office politics ever invented. Forget your toxic 9-to-5 boss. Multiply that by 10,000 years of dynasties, and one emperor who literally decides whether you eat duck or die. First rule you learn. Your rank determines everything. And I mean everything. The emperor's top wife, the empress rules the inner court. Beneath her, you've got the noble consorts. The consorts, the concubines, and then the low-level, talented ladies who are basically interns with lipstick. Where do you fall? Oh, don't worry, the eunuchs will remind you daily. They're like HR, except with knives and no sense of humor. You shuffle past rows of women already watching you with narrowed eyes. Some of them look like angels carved out of jade. But make no mistake, every smile hides a blade. Because here, survival isn't about who's the prettiest. It's about who can play the emperor like a Gukeen string dot. So, what do you actually do all day? Let's start with the mornings. You don't get to sleep in until noon, like a pampered princess. Nope, at dawn. Drums thunder across the palace, and you're dragged out of bed by maids who treat your face like it's their property. They powder you, paint your eyebrows into thin, sharp daggers, and shove your hair into buns so tight your skull feels like it's shrinking. Why? Because when you line up for the morning greetings, you need to look like a porcelain doll who hasn't cried herself to sleep. Ah, yes, morning greetings. Picture this. Every concubine, ranked like chess pieces, files into the empress's chamber. You bow so low, your forehead almost kisses the marble floor, while the empress sits on a throne, sipping tea like she invented boredom. If you're lucky, she nods. If you're unlucky, she remembers you exist. And trust me, you don't want the empress remembering you exist. After that ritual humiliation, the day begins. Some of you head to embroidery rooms, stitching phoenixes that no one will ever wear. Others practice music, painting, calligraphy, all the arts designed to impress one man. It sounds glamorous, but imagine doing it every single day. Knowing one wrong move could land you in exile, or worse. And oh, the food. You think you're dining on delicacies, right? Wrong. Every dish is inspected, tasted, and sniffed by eunuchs before it reaches your lips. Poison was basically a regular seasoning back then, so if you survive lunch, congratulations, you've passed the daily death test. But here's the twisted part. All this routine bowing, painting, surviving to one central obsession. The emperor's attention. If he visits your chamber at night, you rise in rank, gain gifts, maybe even power. If he ignores you, you fade into dust like an unused scroll. Some women waited decades without a single visit, their youth evaporating behind those palace walls. Imagine living every day knowing that your entire worth comes down to whether one man knocks on your door. And just when you think you can, relax, bam, drama. Concubines didn't just sit around fanning themselves. They schemed, they whispered, they plotted. Every smile could mean an alliance or a trap. Want to poison your rival's soup? Easy. Want to frame another for breaking a vase? Done. Palace life was basically one long reality TV show. Except the loser didn't get voted off. They got buried down. You might be thinking, alright, this is intense, but maybe it was still kind of glamorous. Huh, let me kill that fantasy. Behind the embroidered robes and silk screens, concubines suffered. Loneliness was constant. Friendships were rare and dangerous. And don't forget, you couldn't just leave. The Forbidden City was a golden cage, and once you were in, the only way out was death. Or if you were insanely lucky, being released. As a nun, when you were too old to matter, you start to realize being a concubine wasn't about luxury. It was about survival. Every gesture, every glance, every word had weight. And you're now caught in this web, a pawn in a game you barely understand. But here's where things get even stranger. Because just when you think you understand the daily grind of palace life, there's another layer, a darker one. Concubines weren't just competing for love. They were competing for their families. Your father, your brothers, your entire clan could rise or fall based on your status. That's why young girls were shoved into the palace like poker chips, because one smile from the emperor could make your bloodline powerful, and one mistake could destroy them forever. And it gets worse. You've heard whispers in the corridors. Strange rules, rituals no one dares to explain. What happens when the emperor selects a concubine for the night isn't as simple as you think. There are rituals that control everything, from how you're carried to his chamber, to how you're inspected, to how you're dismissed like a servant once the deed is done. But hey, that's not something we can uncover just yet. You've only stepped through the first door. The palace still has 24 more secrets waiting for you. And trust me, the next one will make your jaw drop. So are you ready to see what really happens when the emperor calls for you in the middle of the night? You, standing in the middle of your chamber, heart pounding like a war drum, because tonight's happening. The emperor has chosen you. Or at least, that's what the eunuchs just announced, with their sharp little voices that could slice through stone. You'd think this would feel like winning the lottery, but instead, it feels like being drafted into the Hunger Games. First, the eunuchs come in with faces so blank, they make mannequins look emotional. They don't ask, they order. You're told to bathe. But don't imagine some rose-petaled bubble bath. No, this is a ritual scrub down, where maids practically peel your skin off with rough cloths. Every inch of you is inspected, scrubbed, and oiled, until you smell less like a human and more like a walking incense stick. Then comes the ritual robe. A plain, simple, silk gown. Because apparently, when you're summoned, you're not supposed to look like a goddess. You're supposed to look like property. And then, the strangest part, you're not allowed to walk to the emperor's bedchamber. Nope, you're carried, picture it. Two eunuchs lift you up onto a big, rectangular quilt, like a human burrito. They fold the sides over you, trapping your arms, so you look less like a seductive consort and more like a tightly wrapped dumpling. Why? Because rules. No one walks in on their own feet to the emperor. It's meant to show that you're being delivered like a gift. Romantic, huh? Now, let's pause. Imagine this scene. You're being carried through endless candlelit corridors, wrapped like takeout, while eunuchs march you like pallbearers carrying a coffin. And maybe you're thinking, wow, that's intense. But trust MIT, gets even weirder, because once you arrive, there's another inspection. The emperor doesn't just open the quilt and say, "Welcome, darling." No, eunuchs announce your arrival in loud voices, sometimes reciting your name and rank like you're being introduced at a talent show. Then they unroll you in front of him. And there he is, the most powerful man in the world, the son of heaven, the dragon on the throne. Yawning, half asleep, because you're one of 100 faces he has to choose from now. If he's in the mood, you stay. If he's not, well, congratulations, you've just been unrolled, rewrapped, and carried back like a rejected Amazon package. But if you are chosen, then the strangest kind of performance begins. Because being with the emperor isn't about romance, passion, or any of that Hollywood stuff. It's a job, a test. You're expected to be graceful, but obedient, alluring but respectful, enticing but not too forward. One wrong move, you might never be summoned again. And here's the kicker. The emperor's visits weren't just about pleasure. They were about power. Every time he called for you, your rank in the palace shifted, your rivals fumed, and your family outside the palace gained bragging rights. It wasn't just a night in bed. It was a political earthquake. But don't for a second think that meant you were safe. Because in this palace, favor is like lightning, it strikes, suddenly, burns brightly, and disappears without warning. One day you're the emperor's darling. The next, you're yesterday's news, left to rot in your chamber, while the gossip winds cut your name to shreds. Now imagine this, you're lying there in the candlelight, trying to balance your life, your family's honor, and your rival concubines. Knives all, while keeping the emperor entertained. And you know deep down, you're replaceable. But here's something darker. Something no official records really talk about. Not every emperor was gentle. Some treated concubines like living dolls. Some used them as pawns, discarded them, punished them cruelly if they displeased him. And remember, you couldn't say no. Consent. That word didn't exist for you. And still, women fought tooth and nail for this moment. Why? Because even the tiniest chance of becoming pregnant with the emperor's child meant everything. A son could make you untouchable. A daughter could secure your clan's future, but also fail to conceive, and you were vulnerable to whispers, accusations, and rivals who might just slip something deadly into your tea. The tension of palace life didn't stop at the chamber door. It followed you everywhere, even after. The emperor dismissed you usually without a second glance. The game continued. You'd be wrapped back in the quilt, carried to your chamber, and left with your thoughts. Some concubines wept. Some prayed. Some plotted their next move like generals planning war. And you, right now, as you sit in your chamber after your first imperial summons, your head spinning, you hear the whispers outside. The other concubines already know. News travels faster than fire in this palace. By morning, every pair of painted lips will be talking about you. Some will hate you. Some will fear you. Some will pretend to be your friend. But make no mistake, you've just been thrown into the spotlight, and in this world, the spotlight can burn, because tomorrow morning, you're expected to appear again before the Empress, and this time, she knows the Emperor called for you. Will she smile politely? Or will she begin plotting your downfall before the tea even cools? You already feel that the real danger of palace life isn't the Emperor. It's the women around you, and tomorrow, you'll find out just how sharp their claws can be. You, standing in the hall of benevolent tranquility. Though let me tell you, there is nothing tranquil about it. Dawn light filters through red-lacquered windows. Incense smoke curls in lazy spirals, and rows of concubines kneel on the cold marble floor like chess pieces waiting for their turn to be sacrificed. And there, at the head of it all, sits the Empress. Now, let's get one thing straight. The Empress isn't just another wife. She's the sun, the moon, the entire weather forecast inside the palace. Every smile, every tilt of her head, is a message written in invisible ink. And today she knows exactly what happened last night. She knows the Emperor called you. The other concubines know too. You can feel their stares stabbing into your back like poisoned arrows. Some are jealous, some are terrified, and some are silently calculating how to ruin you before you even finish bowing. And as you lower yourself to the floor, forehead almost kissing marble, you wonder, will the Empress let you rise, or leave you there groveling like dirt? Rise, she says, her voice soft, like silk sliding over a blade. You lift your head, and there it is, that smile, perfect, polished, deadly. The kind of smile that says, "Welcome to the family, darling. I might kill you later, but for now, let's have tea." She waves a hand, and suddenly you're being offered tea by palace maids, whose faces are so blank, you wonder if they're even human. The cup is steaming, fragrant with jasmine. You hesitate. For a second, because let's be real, half the poison in this palace is probably hiding inside teacups, but the rules are clear. You drink always. So you raise it to your lips, pretending your hands aren't trembling, and sip. The Empress watches you the whole time, her eyes sharp, unreadable. Around her, the chamber is silent except for the delicate sound of concubines shifting nervously in their silk robes. And then, after what feels like hours, she sets her own cup down with a soft clink. "You served His Majesty well, I hear," she says. "Oh boy, that's not a question. That's a landmine." You don't nod. You don't smile. You definitely don't blush, like some lovesick fool. You lower your gaze, bow again, and murmur the only safe response. This humble one, only. follows duty. The Empress smiles wider, but her eyes, they're already plotting 10 different ways to destroy you. See, here's the truth. The Emperor might be the dragon, but the Empress, she's the one who keeps the palace breathing. She controls the inner court, the food supplies, the maids, the eunuchs, basically everything that touches your daily life. If she likes you, you might survive. If she doesn't, you might find yourself accidentally falling ill, or coincidentally tripping into a pond and never resurfacing, and you can feel it. She doesn't like you. By the time morning greetings end, your nerves are shredded. But the real nightmare comes afterward, when the gossip starts. Concubines gather in little clusters, whispering behind painted fans. Some glance at you with pity, others with pure venom. One or two, the bold ones, even come up to offer fake smiles and honey-dripping words like, "Oh, you must be so tired, sister. The Emperor surely kept you busy last night." Translation: enjoy your 15 minutes, darling. We're sharpening our knives. This is where the real battle begins. Because concubines don't just compete with beauty or talent. They compete with strategy, alliances, and sabotage. You're suddenly on a battlefield where weapons aren't swords, but rumors, jealousy, and silk-sleeved daggers. Take meals, for instance. At lunch, a rival accidentally bumps into you, spilling soup across your robe. Everyone gasps, the eunuchs glare, and the whole thing feels like a stage play. Was it clumsy? Or was it a message? Or at the embroidery hall, someone swaps your half-finished phoenix design with a clumsy, ugly mess. If the Empress sees it, she'll think you can't stitch a straight line. A small sabotage. But in the palace, even embroidery is a weapon. And then there's the whispers about pregnancy. Oh yes, some concubines start hinting that maybe you'll conceive soon. Others start hinting that maybe you won't. Either way, it's dangerous. Because the moment your womb becomes a topic of gossip, your entire body stops being yours. It becomes state property. By the end of the day, you're drained, exhausted, and paranoid. Every smile feels like a trap. Every compliment feels like poison. You retreat to your chamber, heart heavy, wondering how you're supposed to survive this glittering cage. But just when you're about to collapse, a eunuch arrives with a sealed message. His expression is blank, but his eyes flicker for a second, a tiny, almost invisible sign of fear. You take the scroll, hands trembling, and break the seal. Inside, written in elegant sweeping characters, are just 6 words. We need to speak. Tonight, alone. It's not signed. But the handwriting, you recognize it instantly. It belongs to the Emperor. And if the Emperor is secretly sending notes to a concubine behind the Empress's back, then you're not just in danger, you've just become a spark in a fire that could burn the entire palace to the ground. The note is still warm in your hand, as if the ink itself hasn't had time to dry. 6 words, just 6. And yet they weigh more than all the silk robes in the Forbidden City. We need to speak. Tonight, alone. Alone. That word is the one burning in your chest. Nothing here ever happens alone. Every meeting, every ritual, every step is observed, whispered about, catalogued by eunuchs and maids who never sleep. And yet the Emperor has written it, in his own hand, to you. By nightfall, the palace is a different world. During the day it hums with chatter, politics, and clattering footsteps. But at night, the corridors stretch long and silent, lanterns glowing faintly, like watchful eyes. Your chamber feels smaller than ever, walls pressing in on you as you wait. Then, the sound you've been dreading. Footsteps. A eunuch, pale-faced, slips into your chamber. No words, just a gesture. Follow. You gather your robe, heart pounding, and step into the dark. The Forbidden City at night is terrifying. The courtyards are so still, you can hear your own breath echoing. Shadows dance across carved dragons, and every corner feels like it hides a secret. The eunuch leads you down a side passage you've never walked before, away from the main halls, into a quieter, more ancient wing of the palace. Finally, he stops at a carved wooden door. He bows, opens it, and gestures you inside. The room is lit by only 2 candles, and there he is. The emperor, not on his golden throne, not surrounded by ministers or guards, just him, sitting on a low bench, the dragon of the empire looking strangely human in the flickering light. His robes are simple, his hair slightly unbound, and his eyes sharp, restless, watching you like he's been waiting for centuries. You came, he says. His voice is low, careful, as if even the walls might be listening. You bow deeply, trying to hide your trembling. How could I refuse, Your Majesty? He waves his hand, almost impatiently. No formalities. Sit, so you do, legs folding beneath you, though your entire body screams at you to keep kneeling. The silence stretches, thick, until finally he leans closer. There are things, he says slowly, that even the Empress cannot know. Things that happen in this palace behind the painted screens and golden doors, I believe. You may be able to help me, help him. Your brain scrambles. You're a concubine, a pawn, a decoration. What could the Emperor possibly need from you? He seems to read your confusion. Do not think I am blind, he murmurs. I know the Empress plots. I know the consorts poison each other with smiles. But there is something worse. Something beneath us, hidden. Your skin prickles, beneath. Hidden. The Emperor leans so close you can smell the faint sandalwood on his breath. Have you heard the stories, he whispers, of the voices in the walls? And just like that, the air leaves your lungs. Because you have. Not directly, not openly, but in the faintest whispers from your maids. In the way eunuchs sometimes glance nervously at dark corners, in the cold chill that seeps through your chamber at night. Some say the palace is haunted by the spirits of dead concubines, those who were executed, poisoned, or simply disappeared. Some say children, hidden away, cry in the shadows where no child should be. And some say that the walls themselves remember. You nod faintly. The Emperor studies you. Good. Then you know why I cannot trust anyone else. Not the Empress, not the ministers, not even the eunuchs. But you are new, untainted. If you hear anything, if you see anything, you will tell me. You swallow hard, your throat dry. Yes, Your Majesty. His eyes soften for the first time, but it's not comfort, it's warning. Understand, if you betray me, the palace itself will not protect you. Do you understand? You bow your head. I do. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the meeting ends. He rises, pulls the candle closer, and signals to the eunuch. Return her to her chamber. No one must know. You lead back through the dark passages, mind spinning. The Emperor doesn't just want you as a consort. He wants you as a spy. A spy in a palace where secrets can kill you faster than poison. When you finally return to your chamber, the night air feels heavier. You collapse onto your bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing every creak of the walls, like a whisper. And then you hear it. At first, you think it's your imagination. But no, it's there, faint, steady, coming from behind the wooden panels of your chamber. A sound no one should hear in the forbidden city. The soft, unmistakable sound of a child, crying. At first you try to ignore it. Because honestly, who wants to admit they're hearing phantom children in the middle of the night? You pull the silk quilt over your head, squeeze your eyes shut, and tell yourself, it's the wind. It's just the wind, but the sound doesn't stop. It's soft, fragile, a child's sob. Not the shrieking wail of a tantrum, but the low, muffled cry of someone lost, frightened, alone. And worse, it isn't coming from outside. It's coming from inside, behind the wooden wall panels, through the cracks in the forbidden city's bones. You sit up, heart hammering, every nerve on fire. Your maids are asleep in the outer room. You're alone, or at least you thought you were. Slowly, you slide from your bed and pad across the cold floor, pressing your ear to the wall. The crying grows clearer. A hiccuping sob, a whispering breath, and then something else. A second sound. The faint scrape of movement, as if tiny hands are dragging across wood. You jerk back. Breath caught in your throat. All the stories you've heard in whispers flood your mind. Dead children buried under the palace. Abandoned infants, smothered before anyone could claim them. spirits of the innocent, trapped forever. You told yourself they were rumors, bedtime tales for board mates. But now, it feels real. Too real. You spend the rest of the night sitting upright, candles blazing, eyes fixed on that wall. The crying fades just before dawn, leaving only silence and the crushing weight of questions. By morning, you're half mad with exhaustion, but you can't say a word. Who would believe you? If the Empress hears, she'll laugh or worse, accuse you of spreading dangerous nonsense. If the eunuchs hear, they'll call you hysterical. And the Emperor? You don't even know if he meant the voices in the walls, literally, or as some metaphorical palace intrigue, but still. You need answers to first place you look. Your maids. They've been here longer than you, and if anyone knows the truth of the palace, it's the servants who scrub the floors and carry gossip like water, at breakfast, while one combs your hair into a cruelly tight knot. You ask casually, "Did you hear anything strange last night?" The maid freezes for a fraction of a second, just a flicker. Then she bows lower, voice flat. "No, my lady. Nothing unusual. Too fast, too smooth." She's lying. You don't press, but you catch the way her hands tremble slightly as she adjusts your robe. She knows, and she's terrified later. In the embroidery hall, you try again, this time with another concubine. You choose one who seems harmless, a girl who rarely speaks and spends more time staring at her stitches than gossiping. You lean close, whisper, "Do you ever hear noises at night?" Her needle stills. Slowly, she lifts her eyes to yours, and in the faintest whisper, so soft you barely catch it, she answers, "Don't ask. Don't ever ask." Then she lowers her gaze, stitches faster, and never looks at you again. The silence that follows is heavier than thunder. By evening, you're restless, desperate. You pace your chamber, ears straining for the sound to return, and it does. Just after the lamps are lit, the sobbing begins again, low, heartbroken, seeping through the wood like smoke. This time, you don't hide. You press your palm against the wall, tracing the faint lines where the panels meet, and there you find it. A small crack, barely visible, where the wood doesn't fit flush. Your fingers tremble as you press harder. For a moment, nothing. Then movement. Something brushes against your hand from the other side. You rip your hand back with a strangled gasp. Your skin burns, though the touch was faint, almost featherlight. You stagger back, nearly tripping over the rug, staring at that innocent crack in the wall like it's a snake. And then silence. The crying stops. The presence vanishes. The room feels colder, emptier. You don't sleep that night. You just sit, staring at the wall, candles burning down 2 puddles of wax, ears straining for the sound that doesn't come. By dawn, you've made a decision. If the Emperor really wants you to be his spy, if he really believes something dark is hidden here, then this is it. This is the secret, festering beneath the silken gold. But you're not the only one hunting for answers, because when you step into the courtyard the next morning, bleary-eyed, you catch sight of her, the Empress, standing at the far end of the courtyard, speaking quietly to 2 senior eunuchs. Her expression is calm, serene as always, but her eyes flick toward you, sharp and deliberate. And in that moment, you know, she already suspects. Somehow. She knows about the crying, and if the Empress is involved, then this isn't just a ghost story, it's a conspiracy. You try to tell yourself you imagined it, that the voices, those desperate, childish whispers, were nothing more than exhaustion twisting your mind. But no dream could leave you shaking like this, wide awake, with your pulse hammering against your throat, and then you see it, on the edge of your sleeping mat. Faint and smeared, like someone dragged tiny fingers through ash. A handprint, too small to be yours. Too real to dismiss. By morning, your nerves are stretched so thin you feel like a string about to snap. You watch the Empress during the morning rituals, her serene mask never slipping, while every part of you screams that she knows. She's not just aware of what's inside the walls, she's feeding it. But how do you prove something that everyone pretends doesn't exist? You start testing, dropping little comments to the other concubines. Strange noises last night. Did you hear them? Blank stares, awkward laughs, nervous sips of tea. It's not that they don't hear. It's that they've been trained not to. One brave enough to answer an older concubine with sunken cheeks and eyes that look like they've seen hell. Leans in just long enough to mutter, "The palace eats what it needs. Stop listening, if you want to live." The words stick like needles under your skin. The palace eats. That night, you return to the hidden panel. Against every shred of reason, you slip back inside. The whispering is louder now, the words almost clear. You edge along the wall, feeling for where the voices cluster thickest, and then you find it, a hollow in the stone. When you press your ear against it, the voices come sharp and clear. She takes them. She bleeds them. She keeps us here. You stumble back, heart slamming, bile rising. Your candle flickers violently, and for a split second the flame illuminates something scratched into the wall itself, marks carved by fingernails, frantic and deep. Not writing, just lines. Countless tally marks, as if someone were trying to keep track of days. Or deaths. Before you can breathe. The candle dizzily sicked, and in the pitch dark. A child's voice whispers right beside your ear, not through the wall, this time, but inside the passage with you. Run, you don't think. You bolt, slamming the panel behind you, chest heaving. Sweat dripping down your spine. But when you stumble back into the main corridor, you're not alone. The Empress is standing there, her face calm, her robes immaculate, her eyes sharp enough to peel flesh from bone. She doesn't speak. She only studies you for a long, terrifying moment. And then she smiles. Not a warm smile. A knowing one, as if to say, "Yes, now you know." But you won't leave alive. You try to tell yourself you imagined it. That the voices, those desperate, childish whispers, were nothing more than exhaustion twisting your mind. But no dream could leave you shaking like this, wide awake, with your pulse hammering against your throat, and then you see it, on the edge of your sleeping mat. Faint and smeared, like someone dragged tiny fingers through ash. A handprint, too small to be yours. Too real to dismiss. By morning, your nerves are stretched so thin you feel like a string about to snap. You watch the Empress during the morning rituals, her serene mask never slipping, while every part of you screams that she knows. She's not just aware of what's inside the walls, she's feeding it. But how do you prove something that everyone pretends doesn't exist? You start testing, dropping little comments to the other concubines. Strange noises last night. Did you hear them? Blank stares, awkward laughs, nervous sips of tea. It's not that they don't hear. It's that they've been trained not to. One brave enough to answer an older concubine with sunken cheeks and eyes that look like they've seen hell. Leans in just long enough to mutter, "The palace eats what it needs. Stop listening, if you want to live." The words stick like needles under your skin. The palace eats. That night, you return to the hidden panel. Against every shred of reason, you slip back inside. The whispering is louder now, the words almost clear. You edge along the wall, feeling for where the voices cluster thickest, and then you find it, a hollow in the stone. When you press your ear against it, the voices come sharp and clear. She takes them. She bleeds them. She keeps us here. You stumble back, heart slamming, bile rising. Your candle flickers violently, and for a split second the flame illuminates something scratched into the wall itself, marks carved by fingernails, frantic and deep. Not writing, just lines. Countless tally marks, as if someone were trying to keep track of days. Or deaths. Before you can breathe. The candle dizzily sicked, and in the pitch dark. A child's voice whispers right beside your ear, not through the wall, this time, but inside the passage with you. Run, you don't think. You bolt, slamming the panel behind you, chest heaving. Sweat dripping down your spine. But when you stumble back into the main corridor, you're not alone. The Empress is standing there, her face calm, her robes immaculate, her eyes sharp enough to peel flesh from bone. She doesn't speak. She only studies you for a long, terrifying moment. And then she smiles. Not a warm smile. A knowing one, as if to say, "Yes, now you know." But you won't leave alive. You try to steady your breathing, but it's like trying to hold water in your hands. Useless. That smile is still burning into you. The corridor is silent except for the pounding of your own pulse, and the Empress doesn't move, doesn't speak. She doesn't have to. Just her presence feels like a verdict. For one impossible heartbeat, you're convinced she's going to order your execution right there. Guards will come charging, blades will sing, and you'll vanish into the palace's long list of unfortunate accidents. But instead, she simply tilts her head, as if amused, then glides past you with that effortless grace only someone born into power could master. Her perfume lingers jasmine, sweet but heavy. You realize it's the same scent you smelled in the walls. It's not a coincidence. It never was. The next morning, life in the palace resumes, as though nothing happened. You're summoned with the others to attend her. The daily rituals unfolding like clockwork, bowing, tea pouring, the endless layers of etiquette. But every time her gaze flickers across you, your stomach knots. You don't hear words, but you feel the message loud and clear. I know where you've been. I know what you heard. And then she begins her game. It starts small. During the midday meal, she asks you to serve her tea, though usually that's another concubine's role. Her eyes stay locked on yours the entire time, and you almost spill the cup. She notices, of course. She notices everything. Later, during a poetry recital, she interrupts to ask what you dream about. The question is innocent on the surface, but the way she says it's so soft, so deliberate, makes your blood freeze. What she really means is, did you dream about the whispers again? You laugh it off, deflect, say something about cherry blossoms and spring rains. She smiles faintly, but the air around you tightens like a noose. That night, you can't sleep. Every shadow looks like it's about to peel off the wall and speak. You hear faint scratching sounds, like nails dragging across wood. Are they in your room now? Or is it your own mind, unraveling thread by thread? Finally, you force yourself to move. You light a candle and whisper to yourself like a mantra, just breathe, just breathe. But when you turn, the panel in your wall-to-one you thought you'd sealed shut has shifted open by the width of a finger. Inside, the darkness waits, and from within, something exhales. You slam it shut again, heart jackhammering, sweat stinging your eyes. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep walking into the jaws of the palace like some moth begging to be burned alive. But the worst part, you know you will. Curiosity isn't just pulling you anymore, it's dragging you by the throat. Because here's the truth, the Empress wants you to look. She wants you to know. And whatever waits inside those walls, whatever truth is clawing to be heard, she's daring you to find it. You're not a prisoner here. You're the chosen witness. The next day proves it. The Empress holds court, a dazzling performance of silks and riddles, while the concubines hover like jeweled shadows. At one point, she begins telling a story to the gathered nobles, a tale of loyalty and betrayal. Everyone laughs politely at the humor, gasps at the tragedy, bows at the wisdom, but her eyes are fixed on you alone, and the story. It's about a woman who discovered secrets in palace walls, a woman who thought she could hide her curiosity, a woman who vanished without a trace. Every word is a blade pressed against your neck. And then, she lifts her cup, sips delicately, and says, "Some walls are meant to be listened to, others are meant to stay hungry." The hall falls silent. No one dares ask what she means. But you know. You know. That night, when you return to your quarters, you don't even pretend to resist. You light your candle, press your hand against the panel, and slide it open. The whispering is waiting. Louder this time. Clearer, and underneath it all, the faintest echo of laughter. Not the laughter of a child. The laughter of the Empress. You step inside, breath shaking, the flame trembling in your hand. The stone is cold against your bare feet. The walls are carved with deeper grooves than before new marks. How could they be new? Who's still alive in here to carve them? And then, on the far side of the passage, you see something that makes your blood turn to ice. A scrap of silk, caught on a jagged stone. Red silk, the same color the Empress wore that morning. She's been here. She walks these passages herself, which means she doesn't just control the walls. She is the walls. And just when you're about to reach for that scrap, your candle flickers again. But this time it doesn't go out. This time, Another flame lights beside you. A second candle, floating in the dark, held by a hand too small to be human. The whispers rise into a chorus. And all around you the tally marks on the walls seem to move, shifting, multiplying, crawling toward you like living veins. And the voice returns right against your ear, sweet and venomous. She's waiting. The second flame should not exist. You know you're holding one candle, your trembling hand proves it. But the other glow flickers steady, unwavering, as though it has burned for centuries in this suffocating dark. You force your eyes upward, past the fragile light, to the hand that carries it. It's small, too small. Skin stretched tight, bone-thin fingers curling around the wax. And the candle wax itself has melted down over that hand, sealing to flesh, fusing skin and wax together, like a grotesque glove. You want to scream, but the sound dies in your throat. Because now the face appears. Not a child, not a ghost. Something between the figure stares at you with eyes so wide they seem lidless. Eyes that glow faintly with reflected flame. The mouth opens not with breath, but with a hiss that scrapes like stone splitting apart. And from that mouth, the whispers return, multiplied, layered, impossible. It's not one voice. It's hundreds. They're inside it. Every missing concubine, every vanished servant, every voice you've heard from the walls. They are inside this thing. Your knees almost buckle. The candle you hold spits wax across your wrist. But you don't move. You can't. The corridor presses closer around you, stone sweating, air thinning. The creature tilts its head, just like the Empress did, and the sight nearly crushes you with realization. It learned from her, or worse, she learned from it. The figure glides forward, not walking, sliding, feet dragging, but never lifting, like something pretending to remember how humans move. You stumble backward until your shoulders slam into the wall. The whispers sharpen, weaving into words. She gave us to the stone. She fed us to the dark. We are the price of her throne. The hand holding the candle stretches toward you, dripping wax. It wants you to take it. It wants you to hold the fused flesh, to accept its offering. And then you hear the sound that undoes you completely. The Empress's laugh. Not echoing from the walls this time. Not distant, no. From right behind you, you whirl, slamming your candle up like a pathetic weapon. She's there. Her silks ripple unnaturally in the stale air, as if underwater. Her face is half in shadow, but her smile is whole, perfect, terrifying. You've seen my children, she whispers. Do you understand now? Your mouth opens, but nothing comes out. Every empire, she continues, her voice, soft as crushed petals, is built on sacrifice. Walls are not only stone, they are blood, they are memory, they are flesh. Her hand brushes the stone beside you, and it shudders. For one impossible second, you swear the wall inhales. The creature in front of you lowers its candle. Its whispers surge, breaking into shrieks that stab into your skull. Join us, join us, join us. You clutch your ears, but it's useless. The sound isn't entering through your ears, it's blooming inside your bones. The Empress leans close. So close you can smell the jasmine again. Her words melt into your brain like poison. Tell me, little moth, do you want to live as one voice in the dark? Or do you want to reign over them? The choice is a dagger pressed against your chest. Every instinct screams to run, but where? The walls shift with her will. Every door belongs to her. Every shadow bends for her. There is no escape, only surrender or corruption. And for the first time, the truth claws through the fog of fear. She isn't just playing with you. She's grooming you, testing you. She doesn't want you dead. She wants you to inherit. The whispers crash like waves. The candle in your hand sputters out, plunging you into the Empress's flame, her creature's flame, and nothing else. In the suffocating dark, her voice cuts sharper than a blade. You've walked the walls. You've heard their hunger now. Tell me their secret. Her eyes bore into you, demanding, daring, and then silence. The whispers stopped. The creature freezes, its head tilting, waiting. It's all on you. If you answer wrong, you're swallowed. If you answer right, you become something worse than swallowed. You become chosen, and as you try to form words, You realize the most horrifying part of all. You do know their secret. Because the whispers weren't just voices begging for release. They were teaching you. They were training you. And somewhere in the madness, you've already begun to understand the language of the walls. The silence is worse than the whispers. At least with the whispers, you could pretend it wasn't about you. But now everything waits. The Empress, the fused child thing, even the walls themselves, they are holding their breath, demanding you. Swallow hard. Your tongue feels swollen, useless. Yet deep inside, a sound pushes upward. Not your voice, not quite. It's the residue of 1,000 voices, bubbling like tar through your throat, and then you say it. Not words, not Chinese, not human speech at all. Something older, sharper. A phrase that makes the candle flames shiver as though the air itself recoiled the creature before you jerks, trembling violently. Its fused hand cracks apart, wax peeling, skin splitting open. From the wound, not bloodstone, dust pours, thick and gray. Like the wall is leaking through it. The Empress's lips curl into something between a smile and a wound. Yes, she breathes. You've heard them. The corridor itself rumbles. Mortar cracks, bricks bulge, and for the first time you realize the walls are not solid. They pulse, as though every brick contains lungs. And when you focus, Scott, help you can hear them. Each stone has a voice. Each voice has a name. They aren't just trapped here. They've been woven into the architecture. Human essence as foundation. Flesh as mortar. Soul as echo. You whisper another word from that cursed language, and the nearest wall trembles like it recognizes you. The Empress claps softly, the sound obscene in this tomb. You feel it, don't you? The weight of empire. This palace doesn't stand because of men, stands because of them. My concubines, my rivals, my servants. Every life absorbed to hold these walls steady. And now you know their tongue. Her eyes blaze, a torch, in the dark. Do you know what that makes you? You don't answer. You can't. Because deep in your skull, something answers for you. It laughs, not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly. The creature tilts its head again, like a puppet whose strings have been cut. It sinks to the ground, limbs folding in on themselves, mouth slack. Its candle gutters out. You realize with dawning horror that it has given its place to you. Now you are the new vessel. The Empress circles you slowly, dragging her nails across the sweating wall. Each scrape pulls out a faint groan from the stones, like she's playing a living instrument. All emperors, she says softly, have armies. But she taps the wall, and it exhales dust. I have legions, legions that never die, never betray, never sleep. She stops in front of you, eyes boring through your skull. And now, perhaps, I have you. You want to scream no. You want to reject it. But your mouth betrays you again. The language spills out, jagged and guttural. The stones shiver, the floor quakes. And this time, you understand what you're saying. You're calling them, you're summoning them, from cracks in the stone. Hands emerge skeletal, still wrapped in silk tatters. Fingers clawing, mouths gasping soundlessly as half-bodies drag themselves free. They are not ghosts, not quite corpses. They are the wall given shape. And they kneel, not to the Empress, to you. The Empress doesn't flinch. If anything, she glows there. It is, she whispers, nearly tender. The proof. Her hand cups your face. Her touch burns ice cold. You thought you wandered here by accident. But no, they chose you. I only prepared you. A moth needs fire, after all, to become something brighter. Her gaze sharpens, predator, behind the softness. But you are not yet worthy. Words are one thing, command is another. If you cannot bend them, they will break you. She gestures, and the kneeling wall creatures lurch upright, jerky as marionettes. Their mouths split wide, and for the first time, they speak not whispers, but roars. The corridor shakes. Dust rains down. You stagger back, choking, as they swarm. Toward you, this is the test. You either command the legion of the walls, or you join them. You force air through your burning lungs, shaping that foul language again. The first attempt fails. They shriek louder, stumbling closer, arms stretching. claws grazing your chest. You try again, harder. The walls buckle, bricks popping like teeth. The voices inside surge through you, lending you strength you don't own. And then they stop. Frozen. Mid-lunge. 100 gray faces stare, mouths open, waiting, and you realize they're waiting for your order. Your heart slams against your ribs. The Empress is watching, lips parted, hungrier than you've ever seen her. This is the moment. This is where you either rise or vanish into stone. And so you test it. You give the simplest command. Voice trembling: kneel. The word rolls from your tongue like thunder. And they obey. Every creature collapses at once, slamming to the ground in a soundless quake. Their foreheads press into the stone. The corridor falls silent but for your ragged breath. You did it. You commanded the walls. The Empress exhales sharply, almost a laugh, almost a sob. Her hands clasp together, trembling with delight. Yes, she hisses. Yes, my heir, my shadow, my mirror. She steps so close you feel the weight of her presence crush against your chest. But do not mistake this for triumph. This is only the beginning. To rule the walls is to rule suffering. And suffering has no end. Her lips curl into that cruel, luminous smile. Shall I show you what awaits beyond the walls? The silence afterward is suffocating. Dozens of gray, kneeling bodies remain frozen at your feet, their heads pressed so tightly to the stones that flakes of dust drift upward with every twitch. They are yours, now, yet the very thought makes your stomach twists. The Empress stands before you, radiant and terrible. Her smile isn't triumph alone, it's hunger, calculation, something darker. She brushes her sleeve across the wall, and the creatures dissolve back into it, melting like wax until only cracks remain. You have passed the threshold, she whispers. But thresholds are doors, and doors always lead deeper. Her hand extends, pale and slender, fingers curling toward you like hooks. Come. You hesitate. Every instinct screams to run. Yet you know there is no running. Not anymore. The walls have already claimed you, already marked you. To turn away would mean becoming one of them, silent, kneeling forever. So you take her hand. Her skin is ice. Not the chill of winter, but the cold of something that has never known warmth. The moment your fingers lock, the walls behind her open. Bricks shift and rotate, sliding out of place with the groan of 1,000 coffins. A hidden arch yawns wide, and a corridor stretches into blackness. Without words, she leads you forward. The deeper you walk, the more the palace changes. The air is no longer heavy with dust, it thickens into something syrupy, almost liquid. Your steps sink slightly, as though the floor is softening beneath you. The walls here do not just contain faces. They are faces, not still ones, but writhing. Dozens, hundreds, all pressed together like clay figures. Their eyes rolling, mouths opening and closing in endless silent screams. Some you recognize: the fused child creature, the eunuch who first guided you. Concubines whose whispers you thought were dreams. They do not speak, but their eyes follow you, every step, every breath. The Empress walks with a strange grace, her robes barely brushing the ground. These were my foundations, she says softly. Not walls, not stones. People, all of them. They thought they served me in life. But in death, their service only began. Her fingers trail along the wall. The faces shudder under her touch, some twitching toward her as if starving for it, others shrinking back in terror. I needed them. An empire is not built on marble or gold. It is built on fear, on obedience, and obedience must be absolute. She glances at you, her eyes sharp, burning. You see now, don't you? The walls do not hold us in. They hold everything else out. The hunger, the chaos, the truth. Her words echo, twisting out. Out of what? Out from where? You walk faster, compelled by dread. At last the corridor widens, opening into a cavernous chamber. The ceiling arches impossibly high, vanishing into shadow. At the center stands a throne, not of jade, not of gold, but of bone. Human femurs stacked like pillars, skulls polished until they gleam. And beneath the throne, something moves. It takes your eyes a moment to adjust. The movement is subtle, rolling, like the floor itself is breathing. And then you see it bodies. Thousands of them, fused together in a seething mass, wriggling and twisting. Arms knot into torsos, faces press against backs, legs vanish into chests. The entire floor is a live ocean of flesh. The sound is worse than sight. A constant low moan, like wind through broken flutes. The Empress releases your hand. She ascends the throne with delicate steps, untouched by the writhing mass beneath. Settling on her seat, she looks down at you with a gaze both tender and merciless. "This is the engine," she says simply. "The heart of the palace. The price of silence. Every scream you did not hear, every body you did not bury, every servant who vanished without a trace, they are here. They fuel the walls. They keep the empire whole." Your knees nearly buckle. The stench is overwhelming. Wrought and iron, incense, and ash. "Do you understand?" she asks. "Without them, everything collapses. Without me, there is no order, only chaos. They suffer so that the rest may live." One face, in the seething mass, catches your eye. Unlike the others, it isn't. Twistedinpenance.com, familiar. It's your own. Your breath catches. The face opens its mouth, and though no sound comes out, you know what it says. "Join us." You stagger backward, nearly tripping over the edge of the writhing pit. The Empress's laughter rings sharp and clear, like glass breaking. "Do you think yourself separate?" she asks. "Do you think yourself untouched? You've spoken the tongue of the walls. You've commanded their legions. You are already becoming one of them." She leans forward, her crown of bone glinting. "But perhaps you can be more." Her voice lowers, silk wrapping around steel. "Sit beside me, rule with me. Not as stone, not as flesh, but as something beyond both. Together, we will write a new language into the walls. A language not of silence, but of command." The faces moan louder, the chamber quaking. You clutch your head, torn between revulsion and the terrible pull of belonging. The Empress extends her hand again, palm open, waiting. "Choose," she whispers. "To join them, or to join me." The chamber quakes, trembling like a living heart. The writhing floor surges, limbs and torsos stretching upward as though desperate to drag you down. The air tastes of copper and ash, of ancient incense that fails to mask the stench of rot. The Empress remains still, seated upon her throne of bone. Her hand hovers in the air, pale and expectant. A gesture. Nothing more, yet you feel its weight pressing against your chest like an iron brand. The choice is no longer distant, no longer abstract. It is here now. The voices rise in your skull. Not whispers now, but a chant. "Join us, join us." Your knees buckle. The faces in the mass below blurred together, thousands of eyes locked on you. Some weep, some sneer, some stretch their mouths wide, as if to swallow you whole. Yet one stands out again, your own reflection in flesh. Its eyes plead. Its lips move. "Do not ascend. Fall with us. At least we suffer together." The thought slices into your mind like a blade. To descend is to be consumed, dissolved into the endless chorus of agony. But to ascend, what then? What part of you remains human when you sit beside the Empress? The Empress tilts her head, studying your hesitation. "Do you think I was given this throne?" Her voice cuts sharp. "No, I carved it. With patience, with cruelty, with sacrifice." She rises. Her robes fall like liquid shadow, spilling down the bone steps. She moves closer, step by step, until her presence swallows you whole. Her scent is intoxicating and unbearable, lotus and blood, honey and decay. She lifts her hand again. "Take it," she whispers, "and I will show you what it means to command, not to beg, not to kneel, to own." You try to resist, but your arm betrays you. Slowly, trembling, your hand rises. Every muscle screams against it, but the pull is magnetic, irresistible. The faces below thrash in fury, howling without sound, reaching for you in desperation. Your fingertips brush hers. The moment they touch, your vision explodes. You are no longer in the chamber. Not entirely. You see flashes, fleeting visions like shards of broken glass. A concubine screaming as her body melts into mortar. A soldier's skull split open, his blood hissing as it seeps into the palace walls. A servant praying, her eyes gouged out, her voice fed into the stone. The Empress standing above them all, serene, untouched, eternal. Each vision pierces you, burns into your skin. When it ends, you stagger, gasping, your hand still locked in hers. The Empress smiles. Good, she murmurs. With her other hand, she presses her palm to your chest. At once, you feel your flesh soften, not decay, not rot change. Your ribs flex unnaturally, your heart beating out of rhythm. Your skin crawls, rippling like wax under flame. You cry out, but no sound escapes. Do not resist, she commands. This is the binding. The walls answer her voice. Bricks grind, faces shriek silently, and the floor heaves upward. From the writhing mass of bodies below, tendrils of flesh rise, twisting like vines. They wrap around your ankles, your calves, your thighs. They are warm, too warm, alive. You thrash, but the Empress holds you steady. Do you feel it? She asks, softly, almost lovingly. The palace knows you now. It welcomes you. It binds you. The tendrils climb higher, pressing into your spine, your chest. Your skin burns where they touch, not with pain alone, but with recognition. The palace is writing itself into you, etching its language into your bones. Your vision fractures. For a moment, you see yourself from above, like one of the kneeling figures, your body half swallowed, your face twisted in terror. For another instant, you see yourself from the walls, your features blurring as if carved into stone. And then you see yourself beside her throne. Not human, not flesh, but something else, something sharpened, hollowed, terrible. You do not know which vision is real. The Empress leans closer, her lips almost touching your ear. This is not death, she whispers. It is transformation, flesh into stone, fear into command. You will never kneel again. You will never be prey again. Her words seep into you like venom. And yet, beneath the terror, something inside you aches for it. The thought of never bending, never breaking, never being forgotten, how intoxicating. It feels the tendrils climb your throat. Your voice seizes. You try to scream, but it comes out as a rumble, deep and alien. Like the walls themselves are speaking through you. The Empress pulls back, watching with delighted hunger. Yes, she breathes. Already the tongue of stone curls inside you. Already you speak with the palace's voice. Soon, even the walls will bow. Your body is almost completely bound, flesh fused with stone. You cannot tell where you end and the palace begins. Every brick vibrates with your heartbeat. Every face in the walls feels like your own reflection. And then silence. The tendrils loosen. The Empress steps back. You are standing, barely, but your body is no longer yours. The walls hum through you, each pulse of the palace echoing in your skull. The Empress lowers herself back onto her throne of bone. Her eyes never leave yours. Now she says, "Command them." She gestures to the writhing mass below, the countless faces that moan and twitch in agony. "Speak the word," she hisses. "Make them kneel. Show me you are more than prey." Her smile sharpens, cruel and inviting. "Or I will throw you down among them and let them devour what is left of you." The days start to bleed together in a haze of silk, whispers, and shadows, until you can no longer tell whether the palace is trying to seduce you or suffocate you. Every morning begins with the same ritual, the sound of the bronze gong, the shuffle of embroidered slippers against polished stone, the faint fragrance of incense curling through the air. But beneath the surface of routine, you feel it. Tension, invisible but constant, like a string pulled too tight and waiting to snap. The concubines smile, they bow. They trade compliments that cut sharper than blades, and you know each word is soaked with venom. To survive, you have to become fluent in their language, the art of saying one thing and meaning another. You laugh at a jest that isn't funny. You compliment a robe that isn't beautiful. You play the game, because anything less is a death wish. But it isn't just politics of beauty or cleverness anymore. Now it's war disguised as elegance. One day, a cup of tea left, steaming in a porcelain cup, tastes faintly bitter. And you watch as the woman who drinks it collapses to the floor, her lips turning blue. Her rival gasps, covers her mouth, pretends to cry, but her eyes glint with satisfaction. The next morning, that same rival sits in the front row during courtly ceremonies, closer to the emperor's absent throne, as though fate itself has rewarded her cruelty. You wonder how many women before her sharpened their claws. In the same way, climbing higher on the broken bones of the forgotten dot. At night, though, the walls speak. You hear them. You don't want to, but you do. Scratches, faint thuds, almost like breathing. Some claim it's the old bones of the palace settling. Others say it's the ghosts of concubines who vanished without a trace. You lie awake on silk, sheets that feel more like chains than comfort, counting every heartbeat, every creak, every whisper that drifts through the paper-thin doors. You realize quickly that this palace was not built for rest. It was built to watch you unravel. Then, there are the rituals, those bizarre, suffocating traditions that nobody dares to question. Once a week, the concubines are gathered like jewels, displayed on a tray, and eunuchs inspect every detail. Their hair, their robes, even the way they smile. It's not affection, they're measuring its perfection. Too much weight lost, and they suspect illness. Too much weight gained, and they accuse indulgence. One wrong movement, one misstep, and you are shuffled to the margins, where the forgotten go to rot in silence. You stand among them, trying to breathe, while incense coils sting your lungs. And all you can think is, every inch of you is a battlefield. The emperor finally appears, but not as you expected. He doesn't storm into the chamber with the presence of a god. He glides in silently, eyes heavy-lidded, dressed in gold that shimmers under the lantern light. His gaze lingers for only seconds on each concubine, like a painter studying his canvas, deciding which stroke to keep and which to erase. When his eyes meet yours, even for a moment, it feels like drowning. Not in affection, not in desire, but in power, so absolute that it could erase you with a blink. The air itself bends around him, and you finally understand why these women destroy themselves for him, not because he loves them, but because he doesn't have to. Yet behind his silken robes, rumors spill. They say he doesn't sleep. They say he drinks strange brews, tonics of crushed pearls, and ground herbs that stain his teeth. They say the reason he looks so youthful is because he drains it from others, from the very women who now kneel before him. And when you hear the whispers in the dead of night, when the moonlight cuts across the tiles like a blade, you start to believe it. You follow one such rumor deeper into the palace, through corridors you're not supposed to know, where the air grows colder, thicker, as though it hasn't been touched by breath in centuries. The walls are different here, darker, damp, lined with cracks that seem to pulse faintly in the lamplight. And then you see it. A chamber hidden beneath the main hall, lit by dozens of flickering candles, where eunuchs kneel in silence, and bowls of strange red liquid line the floor. You shouldn't be here, you know it, but your feet refuse to move. The smell is unmistakably sharp and heavy. Blood, whose you cannot say. You flee before anyone notices, but the image never leaves your mind. Suddenly, every smile, every ritual, every vanished concubine makes a grotesque kind of sense. The palace is not simply a place of beauty, it is a machine, grinding down women into whispers, into perfume, into offerings for a throne that feeds on their silence. The next morning, the sun rises as it always does, spilling light over the lotus ponds, but you no longer see the beauty. You see the ghosts floating just beneath the surface of the water, waiting, watching. And as another concubine brushes past you with a too-perfect smile, you know the truth. The deeper you dig, the darker this story becomes. And you've only just started scratching at the surface. Every step you take now feels heavier, as if the palace floor itself is dragging you down into its secrets, daring you to uncover what was never meant to be seen. The concubines move around you like painted shadows, their silk sleeves brushing past with the faint rustle of hidden daggers, their laughter echoing with cruelty disguised as charm. You begin to notice patterns, small details. Others ignore the way certain women never return from midnight summons. The faint marks on the eunuch's arms, as though they carry burdens heavier than trays of tea, the sudden hush that falls. Whenever the emperor's private corridors are mentioned, you try to push it from your mind, to pretend it's paranoia, but the palace won't let you. Every lantern-lit hallway, every mural painted with dragons and phoenixes seems to whisper the same thing: keep digging, and you'll drown. But you can't stop now. The deeper you are pulled into this world, the more you see the concubines not as rivals, but as survivors, each one clinging to her own strategy. Some use beauty, parading themselves like living art. Others wield gossip, like blades, slicing reputations with a single well-placed whisper. And then there are the quiet ones, the ones who smile softly, who bow deeply, who fade into the background. At first you think they're weak, but then you realize they are the most dangerous of all, because invisibility is the perfect disguise. One night, you pass a courtyard where moonlight glints against the surface of the lotus pond, and you catch sight of one of these silent women kneeling by the water, murmuring words you can't understand. Her hands tremble, but her eyes burn with purpose. When she turns and sees you watching, she doesn't startle, she simply smiles. A smile that chills you to the bone, as though she knows exactly what's coming for you. And then, the Emperor begins to call names. Not at random, never random. He chooses with precision, as if plucking threads from a tapestry, and with each name spoken, another concubine vanishes into his chambers. Some return the next morning, pale and hollow-eyed, their hands shaking when they lift a teacup. Others never return at all. Their absence is never acknowledged. Their belongings are gone before sunrise, their rooms cleaned until not a trace remains. Officially, they never existed. But you remember them. You see their shadows in the corners, hear their laughter in the hallways where silence now reigns. The palace keeps moving forward, as if nothing happened, but you know better. It is during one of these nights that you stumble upon something you shouldn't. You were meant to be asleep, yet rest never comes. Easily here, so you wander, barefoot, through a wing of the palace bathed in eerie blue moonlight. You follow the faint hum of voices until you reach a carved wooden screen. It's lacquer-chipped, its dragons curling in the dark. Pressing your ear against it, you hear them, the eunuchs chanting in low, rhythmic tones, words soaked with ritual. You dare to peek through the cracks, and what you see sears itself into your mind. In the center of the room lies a small altar, covered in silk, embroidered with golden characters. Bowls of strange herbs, talismans, and candles surround it. But it is the centerpiece that stops your breath, a lacquered box. Its lid lifted just enough for you to glimpse what's inside. A braid of hair, a strip of silk stained dark, a tooth. The relics of women who no longer walk these halls. Your stomach turns, but before you can flee, a voice cuts through the chanting. Do not let her in. The words are calm, commanding, and though you can't see the speaker, you know they mean you. Your blood runs cold. You don't wait to see if anyone comes. You run back through the corridors, the sound of your heartbeat louder than your footsteps, convinced that every shadow is reaching for you. From that moment on, the palace feels different, heavier, hungrier. Even the sunlight doesn't seem to reach certain corners anymore. You start to wonder if the Emperor rules the palace or if the palace itself rules him. Because every ritual, every disappearance, every whisper seems to feed into something larger, something ancient. The concubines aren't merely companions, they are offerings. The Emperor isn't merely a man, he is the vessel of something older, something monstrous, something that wears human skin like a mask. And now, every look you receive, every smile, every casual touch on your arm feels like a countdown. You don't know when your name will be called, but you know it will be. The only question is whether you'll return or whether you'll join the shadows that haunt these walls forever. The nights stretch longer now, though the palace clock claims they are the same. You begin to feel time unravel here, as though the hours themselves bend under the weight of secrets too heavy to carry. Each evening, when the drums sound from the watchtower, you wonder if this is the night your name will echo from the Emperor's lips, pulled from his mouth like a death sentence wrapped in silk. You watch the other concubines, closely, those who giggle too loudly, those who pray silently. At the incense burner, those who paint their faces with trembling hands. Everyone is pretending. Everyone is masking terror with ritual. And you realize the Emperor is not the only danger. The women around you are predators too, circling like jeweled serpents, ready to strike at the faintest sign of weakness. You catch fragments of their whispers, names traded like currency, small betrayals dressed as friendship. Every smile hides a blade. Every kindness is a debt waiting to be collected. But it is not their treachery that haunts you. Most it is what you see behind the Emperor's eyes. The first time you are permitted to stand close during a banquet. You watch him laugh, his sleeve brushing across a table heavy with golden dishes. His teeth flash as he bites into a plum, juice running red down his fingers. He wipes it casually, on the silk of his robe, uncaring. When his gaze lifts and meets yours across the crowded hall, you feel it pierce through you, not a man's look, but something far colder, like the gaze of a predator who has already chosen his prey. He does not need to speak your name. You know he remembers it, and you know he will use it when the time suits him. That night, you cannot sleep. You toss on your silk mat, listening to the faint scratching in the walls, the sound of rats or perhaps something else gnawing through the wooden beams. At last, restless, you wander into one of the abandoned courtyards. The moonlight pools silver across the cracked stones, and for a moment, you think you are alone. Then, you hear it, a voice, low and broken, like someone crying without tears. You follow the sound to the base of an old willow tree, its roots curling like claws around the earth. There, half hidden in shadow, kneels a concubine you thought had vanished weeks ago. Her hair is disheveled, her silk torn, her eyes wide and hollow. She looks at you, and though her lips barely move, you hear the words as if they are whispered directly into your ear. It's not him, it's what he feeds. Before you can answer, a gust of wind rattles the branches, and when you look again, she is gone. No footsteps, no shadow, nothing but the swaying of the willow branches against the night sky. You retreat to your quarters, your heart pounding, her words burning into your mind. What does he feed? What beast or spirit lies behind the Emperor's hunger, behind his endless need for concubines to disappear into his chambers like moths into flame? And then, slowly, another realization settles over you. If she could appear in the courtyard, after being erased, perhaps she never left at all. Perhaps none of them do. Perhaps the palace itself devours them, their essence absorbed into its walls, their voices carried in the wind, their shadows stitched into the fabric of every painted screen and every lacquered door. The palace is alive, and it is starving. The next morning, the sunlight did not comfort you. It slanted through the lattice windows in harsh strips, like knives cutting across the chamber. The warmth should have been a blessing, but the air was heavy, damp, as though the light itself carried the stink of rot. You dressed slowly, your silk robe brushing against your skin like a shroud. The footsteps in the corridor arrived before the knock pattern you had begun to recognize. Measured, deliberate, like a heartbeat that was not human. When the eunuch's voice came, low and rehearsed, you already knew what he would say. The Emperor had called for you. Your legs moved without your consent. Each step down the corridor felt like treading deeper into the throat of some enormous beast. The walls seemed closer than you remembered, the red lacquer gleaming wet as if freshly painted with something thicker than dye. Servants passed you with their heads bowed too low, as though afraid of seeing too much. One girl brushed against your arm and whispered without moving her lips, "Don't eat the fruit." Her voice was barely air, but it struck you like a commandment. Before you could answer, she was gone, vanishing down another hallway, as though swallowed whole. The throne room opened before you, vast and endless, yet suffocating. The Emperor sat draped in gold, his robe embroidered with dragons that seemed to crawl when you weren't looking. His face was calm, almost tender, but his eyes, those white, endless eyes, fixed on you with the same hunger you had seen in the mirror. He raised his hand, and trays of fruit and delicacies were brought forth. Pomegranates split open to reveal glistening seeds, pears that shone like jade, bowls of honey so thick they seemed alive. The eunuchs placed them at your feet, as though they were offerings to a god. Your stomach tightened. The memory of the girl's whisper burned inside you. "Don't eat the fruit." You bowed low, your forehead touching the cold floor, praying your silence would be enough. The Emperor's voice came soft, like a lullaby, but every word coiled around you like smoke. "You will take what is given." His tone was not anger, but inevitability, the kind of certainty that crushes mountains. You lifted a pomegranate seed between trembling fingers. It gleamed red as fresh blood. When it touched your tongue, you felt it immediately. Not sweetness, not nourishment, but a pull. A hand inside your chest, reaching. The seed dissolved like ash, and in its place came a gnawing emptiness, a hollow that seemed to widen with every breath. You understood then, the fruit was not food. It was a tether, a binding. Every bite gave more of yourself away, piece by piece, until nothing remained but the husk he desired. You chewed slowly, forcing yourself to swallow, and when you looked up, the Emperor's eyes shone brighter, as though you had fed him directly, around you. The other concubines smiled faintly, their lips painted, their cheeks glowing with rouge. But now you saw the truth beneath the powder. Their faces were drawn, their hands trembling when they thought no one watched. They had been eating this fruit for years. Their beauty was nothing but the mask of their withering souls, polished to please him while their essence drained away like wine from a cracked vessel. Your turn ended. You were dismissed with a flick of his hand, but as you backed away, you felt the weight of his gaze burrow into your spine. The tray of fruit remained untouched beside him, endless, eternal, as if it had always been there. You realized it probably. The palace did not need seasons. Its orchard was fed by the blood of its women. When you returned to your chamber, you did not cry. You sat in silence, listening. The walls pulsed faintly, in and out, like lungs. The wooden beams above creaked, not from weight, but from breath. The garden outside rustled, though no wind stirred. The palace was not stone. It was not wood. It was living. And every concubine, every eunuch, every whispered warning was nothing more than blood in its veins. You pressed your hand against the floor. It was warm. Warm like flesh. That night, when the palace had finally gone quiet, when even the silk moths seemed to stop beating their fragile wings against the candlelight, you found yourself awake in a silence that was not silence at all. The stillness pressed against you like a wet cloth wrapped tight around your face, suffocating, smothering. And the longer you lay there, the more you realized that beneath the hush was a sound, faint at first. So faint you thought it was your own blood thudding in your ears, but then it grew sharper, slicing through the silence with the fragility of a cracked whisper. You sat up, straining, your breath caught, your pulse quickening as you realized that the sound was not coming from the courtyards, not from the corridors outside your chamber, not even from the garden where the crickets rasped their monotonous song. No. The sound was inside the very walls that surrounded you. You pressed your hand flat against the lacquered wood of the chamber wall, the cool surface vibrating faintly beneath your palm, like skin alive with fever, and then clear as breath on glass. You heard them, voices too many to count, layered and tangled like roots beneath a strangler fig. A woman sobbing softly, her despair muffled but still sharp enough to make your throat tighten. A man muttering prayers in a dialect you didn't recognize, the syllables broken, desperate, almost childlike. And worse, still the laughter of a child, a short high giggle that cut off abruptly, as though a small throat had been closed mid. You ripped your hand away, but the voices followed, slipping into your skull as if they had been waiting for you all along. You stumbled back from the wall, clutching at your chest as though to steady your racing heart, but the sound grew louder. The sobs swelled, the prayers twisted into pleading, and the laughter echoed like a cruel memory, taunting you. And then you saw it, the flicker of movement where no movement should be. The candle on your table sputtered as though blown by an unseen breath, and in its tremor of flame, the shadows along the wall shifted. Faces emerged. Not fully, not like figures standing before you, but impressions pressed deep into the wood, mouths frozen open in eternal screams. Eyes wide, lidless, unblinking. Their features warped as if the palace itself had swallowed them whole, digesting their bodies but trapping their souls in its very bones. Your knees weakened, and you gripped the edge of your bed to keep from collapsing, but the whispers only thickened, filling the room until you could not tell if they were inside your ears or inside your thoughts. The realization struck you cold. This palace was not a home, not even a prison. It was a grave constructed not upon bodies, but of them. You tried to steady yourself, tried to force your mind back to reason. Perhaps it was exhaustion. Perhaps the endless games of the concubines and the emperor's gaze had driven you into hallucination. But then, through the cacophony of voices, one whisper rose sharper than the rest, and it spoke not in broken sobs, not in strange dialects, but in words you could understand, words that seemed to know you. "Why are you here?" it hissed. You froze, your blood freezing in your veins. Your mouth opened, but no sound came out. You weren't supposed to answer. Some part of you screamed. Whatever these were, they were not meant to be spoken to. And yet, the question lingered, in your mind, heavier than stone. Why were you here? In this chamber, in this palace, in this life you had not chosen. You staggered to your feet, clutching your robe around you, and moved toward the door. You had to leave, had to get away from those voices, from those faces pressed into the walls. But when you slid the door open, the corridor outside was no refuge. The darkness of the hallway was thick, viscous, like ink spilled and left to rot. No lanterns burned. The silence there was heavier still. And from down the corridor you thought. You saw movement, a ripple, like fabric dragging across the floor, though there was no one to wear it. Your mind screamed at you to go back, to close the door, to pretend none of this was happening, but your body betrayed you. Step by step, you followed the sound. Your bare feet against the polished wood seemed deafening, though no one came to stop you. No guard, no eunuch, no concubine. Just the whispers, growing louder, more insistent. They led you deeper into the palace's belly, to a place you had never dared go. A place that felt older than the stones themselves. The air grew colder as you walked, damp, heavy with the stench of something buried. And then you saw Ithawal at the end of the corridor, unlike the rest, unpolished, unpainted, rough with age. The whispers clawed at you now, dragging your thoughts into chaos. And as you reached out trembling fingers to touch that ancient surface, you realized the truth. This was no wall, it was a door, and it had been waiting for you. Your hand trembled as it hovered over the rough surface, every instinct screaming at you to turn back, to flee into the safer lies of silk and candlelight, yet some darker gravity pulled you closer. The air leaking from the cracks between the ancient stones was colder than winter water, smelling of mold and something metallic like iron, like blood that had long since dried but never washed away. You pressed your palm against it, and in that moment, the whispers inside your skull fell silent. The sudden hush was worse than the noise. It was not peace, it was expectation. The silence of something holding its breath. The wood, if it was. Wood shifted beneath your touch, not outward, not inward, but alive, as though ribs swelled beneath skin. Then, without sound, without resistance, the wall peeled open. You stumbled back, expecting torches, expecting staircases. But what stretched beyond was blacker than anything you had ever known. This was not darkness that lacked light. This was a darkness that devoured light. A pit into which flame itself would vanish like a swallowed pearl. And from that black came a sound so soft, so unformed, you felt it more than heard it, a heartbeat. Your throat closed. It was impossible, insane, and yet undeniable. A steady thud, low and resonant, pulsing through the walls, through the floor, through your bones. The palace was alive, alive and dreaming. The whispers had only been its exhalations, fragments of the souls it had eaten. But here, at the heart of the dark, was the organ itself, the pulse that kept the labyrinth breathing. And then came the voices again, but no longer fractured, no longer pleading. They spoke in unison, one great chorus woven of thousands, filling your head until it felt like your skull would split. We are the forgotten, we are the nameless, we are the bones beneath your silks. Enter, and you belong to us. Your legs nearly gave out beneath you, but behind you, the corridor you had come from no longer stretched back into safety. The path had folded into itself, swallowed by the black Dione. Way now was forward, into the heart of the thing. You stepped once. The wood beneath your bare foot was damp. Another step, and the dampness grew sticky, clinging, thickening into sludge. By the third step you dared to glance down, and the sight nearly tore your sanity. Apart, your feet were not on wood at all. They were sinking into flesh. The floor beneath you pulsed with the same rhythm as the heartbeat in the dark. Veins glowed faintly beneath translucent skin, carrying sluggish black fluid. Nails and fragments of teeth jutted from the surface like pebbles embedded in earth. And with every step you took, the whispers rose into screams of men torn apart, of women silenced mid-breath, of children whose laughter had been strangled in their throats. Each scream seemed to claw up your spine, digging its way into your marrow. But you walked on, because you had no choice. To stop was to sink. And the deeper you went, the more the passage narrowed, until the walls pressed against your shoulders, moist and trembling, as though the very palace were swallowing you whole. In that suffocating press, the faces returned half-formed visages pushing through the living walls. Their eyes wide, their lips moving silently, as though begging you for something you could not give. Their mouths opened wider, wider still, until the flesh split and the air filled with the stench of rot. At last, you stumbled into a chamber, vast and cavernous, though no torch burned to light it. The light came from the walls themselves, faint and throbbing, red as if lit from within by veins of fire. And there, at the center, hung something that should not have existed, something no human language had the cruelty to name. A mass, a body, if body was the right word, suspended in the air by cords of black sinew. Its surface was a shifting tapestry of faces, men, women, children, all weeping, screaming, or laughing with hollow eyes. Their mouths opened and closed in grotesque rhythm, yet no sound came from them. The sound came from deeper inside, the thing from the thudding, wet heartbeat that echoed like a drum of war. And when its 1,000 eyes turned to you at once, you knew with perfect, obliterating clarity that this was the soul of the palace itself, not built on human suffering, built of it. The air trembled as the mass spoke, though its mouths did not move. The voice was neither male nor female, but a tide of countless throats, speaking in dreadful harmony. You wear their silks. You eat their rice. You breathe their air. You are one of us now. You wanted to scream. You wanted to claw your way free of this nightmare. But the truth wrapped its claws around you, and deep down, you knew there was no escape. Your knees threatened to buckle beneath the weight of that impossible presence. The chamber itself seemed to breathe with the words, each inhalation dragging the air from your lungs, each exhalation pressing it back into you with rancid force. You tried to turn away, to shield your gaze from that shifting tapestry of faces, but every direction you looked, their eyes followed, and blinking, accusing, hollow. Some of them you recognized. The concubine, who had been dragged away 3 nights ago for daring to refuse the emperor's touch. The young eunuch who had whispered too freely of the court's corruption before disappearing into silence. Even the gardener's daughter who had vanished when you were still a child, her small, dirt-stained face peered out from the grotesque surface, lips quivering in eternal plea. They were all here, all swallowed, all bound into the endless flesh of the palace's hunger. The voice came again, low and suffocating. They thought they owned us. They thought we were theirs to discard. But the walls, remember. The walls take, and now you will be remembered too. Your fingernails dug into your own palms until you felt blood. The pain grounded you, but it was fleeting, powerless, against the tide. You opened your mouth to protest, to declare that you did not belong here, that you were not theirs, but no sound came out. The air around you was too thick, too heavy, pressing down like the hand of a god. Then the chamber shuddered, not the trembling of an earthquake, but the slow, deliberate shift of something moving deep below, something older than the palace itself. The heartbeat quickened, each thud rattling your teeth. From the corners of the chamber, shapes began to crawl forward, figures half-formed, their limbs twisting wrong, their faces blurred as though melted. They dragged themselves toward you with the desperation of starved beasts. You stumbled back, but the floor rose like a tide beneath you, flesh swelling into steps that drove you closer to the thing at the chamber's center. The whispers in your head grew frantic, not unified now, but clamoring, fighting, each voice desperate to be heard. Take my place. Free me, I beg you. Kill it. Kill me. No, don't listen. Listen to me. Their pleas overlapped until they became meaningless noise. A river of madness. You clutched your head, but there was no blocking it out. The voices were not in your ears, they were in your blood. And then, from the sea of faces, one detached. Itself, The flesh parted with a wet sound, and a woman stepped forward, as though peeling herself from the mass. She was whole, unbroken, her body shimmering faintly in the red glow. Her eyes found yours, and for a moment, the horror eased. She looked human, familiar, even. "Do you know me?" she asked. Her voice was not part of the chorus. It was soft, trembling, full of unbearable sorrow. You searched her face. Yes, you did know her. Not from memory, but from dreams, the same dreams that had haunted you since you were a child. The woman who appeared in the corner of your sleep, warning you to never open the doors, never follow the whispers. She had always vanished before you could ask her name, and now she stood before you, her body glowing against the endless black. "I was the first," she whispered, "the first to be taken, the first to be bound. I am the heart they built this palace upon." The words crushed you. The heartbeat you had felt, it was hers, or what remained of her. The palace lived because she had been buried alive. Within it, her body twisted into its foundation. Her soul stretched into eternity. And every life the palace had claimed since was bound to her suffering. She reached for you, her hand trembling. "You can end it, but it will cost everything you are." The chamber roared, the faces shrieking in protest, the walls convulsing like a beast in rage. The mass of flesh at the center twisted violently, cords snapping, mouths tearing wider. "Lies." The chorus thundered. She would see us undone. She would see you consumed in her place. "Do not listen, join us, and you will never die." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Choose, before it is too late." The floor beneath you heaved, splitting into two paths. One led toward the woman, whose glow pulsed faintly like a dying star. The other dragged toward the great mass, its thousand mouths open in invitation, promising release, promising immortality. Your chest burned with the weight of the choice. One path to end the nightmare, another to be swallowed into it forever. Both paths steeped in horror, both echoing with the screams of the damned. And all the while, the heartbeat thundered faster, faster, as if the palace itself waited for your step to decide its fate.